like to call to order the August 14th meeting of the Chagrin Falls Board of Education. Mrs. Bruno, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Garvey.
Here.
Mrs. Bros.
Here.
Mr. Kanziger.
Here.
Mrs. O'Toole is out. And Mr. Rankin.
Here.
If you'll please join me and stand and face the flag for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So this is the point in our meeting where we invite public comment. Is there anyone here in the audience tonight who would like to address the board on any topic? Seeing none, we'll move on with the agenda. Can I have a motion for the approval of the July 8th and July 24th minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Bros, seconded by Mr. Kanziger. Is there any discussion of the minutes? Okay, Mrs. Bruno, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Garvey.
Yes.
Mrs. Bros.
Yes.
Mr. Kanziger.
Yes.
Mr. Rankin.
Yes.
Can I have a motion for board recommendation 5A?
I will move for that.
And second?
Second?
All right, moved by Mrs. Bros, seconded by Mr. Rankin. This is the appointment of our official delegate to the Ohio School Board Association Capital Conference, which is a conference that's held in November. Greg is going to be in attendance, and he's agreed to be our delegate, and I will be the alternate. I'll also be in attendance at the conference. So if there's any other discussion.
Thank you both for offering to represent.
Mrs. Bruno, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Garvey.
Yes.
Mrs. Bros.
Yes.
Mr. Kanziger.
Yes.
Mr. Rankin.
Yes.
At this time, we're going to share our board committee updates, starting with the, we'll skip over to the board policy committee. Mrs. Bros.
No update. Just Bob, when the dust settles on who is going to be doing the board policy committee from the administrative perspective, we probably should get a meeting.
Sure. We did get an update on the sophomore OSBA with all the changes that were in the budget. They're going to be late with the release of the first PDQs with their time.
Okay.
Were we all caught up?
Well, except we said we would circle back on some
There were
of
a
the
couple things we were going to circle back on.
Okay.
Maybe we're just having a conversation. Okay. The business advisory committee, Mr. Rankin.
No report.
Capital planning, we have a meeting coming up in about a month on September 11th. It'll be in this room. And I believe it's at 6:30. Chris, does that ring a bell? It'll be posted, so if anybody wants to attend. The board finance and budget committee, Mr. Rankin.
No report.
And records retention is going to be meeting on August 28th at noon. You probably should know. Again, it will be posted if anybody feels like attending that one. Figuring out what to do with piles of records that have been accumulating. At this point, I'd like to turn the meeting over to Mr. Hunt for the superintendent's reports.
Thank you. Good evening. We've got a couple of reports this evening. The first being the kind of biannual report to the Board of Education on the bullying and harassment report. We have to, 2 times a year, publish this to the Board of Education, share it with you, and then post it on our website. So after you see it tonight, we'll go ahead and put that on the Pupil Services website. Obviously, bullying, harassment, intimidation, those are big issues facing kids all over the place, and certainly the cyber side of things has brought a whole dimension to that. You will see when we roll our goals out for the school year, a look at behavior support systems and what are we doing with kids, district-wide. And that's not we finished that work and we're done. It's something we're always talking about and always working on to improve our culture. So just wanted to share that information with you this evening. Pause there. Any questions or comments? Item B, we're going to have a brief update from our representatives from Sodexo. Later in the agenda, there will be a recommendation extension of the contract. I certainly appreciate Mike Gray, Vice President of North American Operations, Mark Harsley, who participated in our last capital planning committee, who's more of our direct contact with Sodexo being here tonight. Thank you very much. And obviously, the board's aware of our on-site maker, Jim Mace, who's going to walk us through the presentation and answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Bob. I've been asked to be brief tonight, so I'll attempt to do so. Bob just did the introductions for us. Our mission here is to support your mission. It is to provide an environment that allows students and staff to maximize their potential. That's why we take care of the things for the facilities that allow this staff to do their job. Our core beliefs are aligned, Sodexo's core beliefs are aligned with the school districts. And I even wanted to talk a little bit about the resources to enhance the learning environment. The asset management framework, the capital planning committee is aware of the VFA and the Maximo and the tie-in and that integrated relationship between the two and what it allows us to do. We're continuing involved in training and development of our people, and then our support and our industry standard processes allow us to take care of the facilities. Briefly about the integrated strategic asset management, what we're trying to do is maximize life cycles, extend equipment life, integrate maintenance, operational capital strategies, improve safety, reliability, and give us the ability to do informed capital planning and budgeting. And next, Mark Harsley. I'd like to introduce Mark.
Good afternoon, good evening. We're so pleased to be a part of the journey here and all the great work and many wonderful things. And this is always the most fun road trip of the year to come at this time of year. So we're pleased for all the conversations that go on all year long between Chris and Bob and myself and Mike and Jim. And so we're just glad to be a part of this and just thank you for the opportunity to serve it. So I have the pleasure to be with Mike Gray, who is the expert in all of this.
Oh, no.
And so I yield my time to the illustrious Mike Gray.
I'll get you for that. So hi, everybody.
Too many candidate debates, I think.
It is always a pleasure to come, and I think this is like the fourth or the summer in a row that I've come to say hello to everybody, and I'm thrilled to do that. I know that one of the things you'd like to hear from me is around sort of what Sodexo is doing around supporting education. So very briefly, I'll simply say I have a quick list to go over really quickly. We're really trying to always tie what we do to a source that helps us to understand the value of the things we do. Earlier today, I sent to Chris a report from Harvard that talked about healthy schools and well-organized schools and the impact that great school facilities can have on teaching and learning, instruction, and results. And it really kind of focused down to some critical areas that we've really focused on, and hopefully some of these you'll recognize from what we do on a daily basis and some of the conversations we have. Ventilation and indoor air quality, water quality, thermal health, which is really talking about the environment in the building, the temperature, and how it interacts with people and students when they're learning. Lighting and views, vistas that students can see and absorb when they're learning. Acoustics and noise throughout the building. Dust, pests, mold, moisture, and those things that are invasive in buildings that can really seep into to distract the students and the teachers from what their core ability. Safety and security, so important as we all know these days. We want to make sure that we're using the best possible sources to help us develop our programs so that they're effective. Because we know, like for instance, with temperature, with the thermal health of the building, there are many studies that show above an optimal temperature, every 1 degree in temperature rise while students are doing things like taking tests, negatively impacts test scores. So these are really credible things that we can do, that we can help to focus the activities that we bring to you as a partner, make sure that they're effective and that they have an impact on the teaching and the learning that's happening in the building. So that's big picture stuff that we're always trying to do, and I thank you for the time and always appreciate being here. Thank you.
Thank you, that was great.
Do you have any questions?
No, I really appreciate the update. Thank you for traveling out. I think the thing we also, you touched on is life cycle management. We want to be good stewards of our facilities and make sure that we're staying on top of regular routine maintenance and replacements when they're necessary. So not only does it affect academic performance, but you're actually helping us stay financially very healthy as a district as well. So thank you for all of your hard work, everybody. It's a good team.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Next up, we're going to move into strategic planning. Talk a little bit about the process we're going to undertake in the fall, leading to January, and then a little bit about next steps from there. I've got Chris tomorrow here from the Impact Group, who's going to share out As the board knows, we gave a community survey last spring and a staff survey last spring. And I thought it was important to at least start to share some of this data with the board. I think it's important to know and see in the goal, and Chris will talk about this, we've tentatively scheduled 4 design team meetings to start the work on the quality for the profile of the graduate. And that'll be one piece of data that we bring to the design team. The board has seen a lot of information that will be brought forward to that team. We've done instructional audits, we've done other surveys. So this is kind of one snapshot in time. You got to remember that as you look at it, as we kind of consider comprehensively what the data is telling us as we move into this process over the next year. So I think we'll start with just your presentation. I'll be honest with you, number 1 and 2 here are kind of integrated in this conversation for the agenda. So certainly, stop, pause, ask questions along the ways, and we can go through it. So thanks for being here, Chris, and I'll turn it over to you.
Absolutely. Appreciate the invite. Board of Education, thank you very much. Very excited to kick off this work with Chagrin Falls. My name is Chris Tomorrow. I'm the Vice President of Strategy at the Impact Group. We are a marketing and communications firm based in Hudson, Ohio. And one of our core tenets, our core competencies, is strategic planning. We help schools all over the state of Ohio, as well as nonprofits, governments, and municipalities, and some corporate entities with their strategic planning, workforce optimization projects in an attempt to make themselves more efficient. As Mr. Hunt noted, we are here today to talk about what we're kind of early title is Destination 2023, where we're attempting to look at the organization a few years down the road. And I've shared with you on my first slide how we envision through 5 phases this process unfolding. Right now, we have completed phase 1, stakeholder engagement and data collections. We're going to go through components of that in a moment. Phase 2, we will move to developing a foundation, validating core missions and vision, conducting a SWOT analysis and a vision casting exercise with the design team, and hopefully with the Board of Education as well, which moves us into phase 3. The bulk of the work is developing core competencies that we want the students of Chagrin Falls to develop. And those are going to be heavily informed by community feedback, by feedback from staff and administration, from moms and dads, and from students themselves. So often in this process of strategic planning with schools, we forget to sit and talk with kids. And we certainly plan on doing that and having them be a part of the design team so that they can kind of add to that conversation those things that they want to be armed with as they take on their future in the 21st century, that sometimes it's pretty difficult to weed through the skills and competencies that kids will need to be successful in a society where those jobs are, to be quite frank, we don't know what they are yet. And how do we prepare kids for an atmosphere and for a world that's constantly changing. Phase 4 is probably my favorite phase of the project. We will take a draft of those core competencies that we've developed together via the design team, elicited by community feedback, and we will essentially vet it in front of community focus groups, where I will sit in front of senior citizens, moms and dads, general community groups, community leaders, business leaders, civic leaders, and ask them if the competencies that we've created resonate with them, if there's anything that confuses them, if they disagree with one of the competencies, if they don't understand why the design team may have wanted students to be collaborative instead of flexible, hardworking instead of self-disciplined. All communities choose different competencies. Those competencies will be backed with action statements. So it'll be very easy to decipher what the design team means when they call a student of persistence. What does that look like in action? And what does that look like in 3rd grade as opposed to 11th grade? Because we all know there's a ton of differentiators in those categories. We will wrap up with phase 5, where we'll roll out the board adopted plans in the community, and we'll really do our best to develop systems and strategies to put emphasis, to back it, to infuse it into the curriculum, and to infuse it in everyday practice in teachers' classrooms. That's a very, very quick overview of a really, really structured process. Some of the goals of our process, obviously, to determine those core competencies, we call them essential skills that will best serve Chagrin students now and in the future. We certainly want to enhance student achievement. We want to help the district organize and become more efficient. We want to boost employee satisfaction. We want to retain and recruit high-quality people. And oftentimes boards will ask, well, what does student competencies have to do with who we recruit and who we try to retain in the district? And the fact of the matter is, if we're going to ask kids to be students of persistence and students of collaboration, we're going to ask them to be critical thinkers. we should be thinking of those same competencies when we onboard staff members as well. Last but not least, we want to provide a world-class environment for students. We recently completed phase 1 of our strategic visioning process, where we attempted to discover some strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats based on community feedback. There's 2 sources of community feedback. We did a general community survey, and we surveyed our staff, which I'll go through here as well. By doing that, we hope to increase trust and collaboration. We want the community to trust in the fact that we want to know what's on their minds and that they can help inform what graduates of Chagrin Falls Exempted Village Schools should look like. We want to enhance the quality of experience for our students and obviously plan for the future. This is somewhat different than a traditional strategic plan in that we really put the student at the center. It's becoming more and more welcomed in K-12 throughout the state of Ohio. Portion of the graduate is growing. So we see in our firm many districts choosing to take the path like Chagrin, where they've kind of supplanted traditional strategic planning for now to do a student-centered version that helps them better understand more traditional forms of strategic planning, where we talk about facilities and we talk about the way that we communicate. Obviously, academic achievement has a role in that, safety and security, all of the goal areas that tend to find themselves on more traditional strategic plans. Just to overview very briefly the 2 surveys, you had over 600 unique respondents, which in a month's time is very sound comparatively. Anecdotally, the districts that we work with, some large, some small, personally that's a very good turnout in the time that we had to deploy the survey. It was 21 questions. We used multiple choice and extended response, and we tried to gauge community input inside the topic areas of academic achievement, communication, finances, 21st century skills, student programming, safety, facilities, and infrastructure. Just highlighting a couple of the slides that I think speak to a lot of the excellent things that are going on in the district. First slide, do you believe Chagrin Falls Exempted Village Schools offers an excellent and good academic experience? You can see that your respondency came back to you that in the 90th percentile, they think things are going very, very well here. In general, people felt that their tax dollars were being utilized in positive ways. You see good value for tax dollars and excellent value for tax dollars, scoring pretty heavily in the community-based survey. One of the extended response questions is really to the heart of the project. We asked community members to briefly discuss the soft skills and competencies that they felt were most essential for Chagrin Falls students. And if you look, I believe it was provided to you in the packet. Some of the essential and soft skills that were brought up by the community, and this is kind of in order: leadership, public speaking, real-world experiences, and communication resonated with community members at the highest levels. We built that out. It's somewhat subjective. Oftentimes, we try to match words that carry the same connotation as other words, so we kind of do our best to match those and figure those trends out for you. But those were what resonated most to your community. The follow-up question to that asked those same community members what they feel could be implemented to help get students in a place where they begin to understand those essential skills. Projects and volunteer experiences within the community, commitment to teaching soft skills like persistence, money management and financial education, stress management and coping skills, mental health awareness, things that we've all heard. Courses that focus on new and flourishing technology, greater focus on social emotional health, peer mentoring programs, and development of a more complete and comprehensive approach to discussing life after graduation. Are some of the things that resonated within the community. Above all, in the community survey, I think this slide is most telling. We asked in general, you as a community member, do you believe that Chagrin Falls Exempted Village Schools is headed in the right direction? To which close to 94% said yes. That's resounding. We do these for many, many school districts, and that's one of the highest scores of that question that I've seen. And that includes some pretty high-profile districts that do a really good job educating kids. So kudos to you, to administration, and to the board. The staff survey achieved 200 unique respondents. There were 32 questions in this survey, again, multiple choice and extended response, and we asked the same general areas for topics. So among staff, Chagrin Falls Exempted Village Schools, again, in the 90th percentile, good to excellent academic experiences. Teachers and support staff resoundingly agreed that the teaching and development of essential skills is pertinent to the 90th percentile. Here's where things get interesting. When describing the district's level of commitment to teaching those sorts of skills on a daily basis in the classroom, you see the percentages begin to skew a little bit, and we have some hard data that can kind of back that up. Essentially, when we read teacher respondents, it's standards and testing seem to get in the way. And those are the things that they commented via their feedback, is that oftentimes they feel that a standards-based, world that we live in, where testing is important, and it's a testing culture, that sometimes gets in the way of being able to teach things like persistence and grit and being able to hone in on an everyday experience in a classroom. We asked the teachers, the same as the community, the soft skills and competencies that they believe are most essential to be competitive in the 21st century. And we received similar answers as we did with the community. Social skills, problem solving, perseverance, and handling adversity scored highest among the teachers in terms of the skills that they felt were most important for kids to be competitive. What could be implemented to better teach those things? Teachers responded opportunities to develop life skills within the chosen curriculum, authentic exploratory learning opportunities, infusion of critical thinking and problem solving into daily work, focus on independent project-based learning opportunities, and also increased cultural awareness and understanding of an interconnected world are all things that are on teachers' minds and how we infuse essential skills into classroom and daily practice. I thought this slide was amazing. We asked teachers what they believed were the most critical components of their role as a teacher, and the spacing and the frequency on this is astounding to me, and I think it speaks volumes to the quality of staff that you have and what they believe that they're there to accomplish with kids. So I know this is kind of hard to read, and you can see it in your packet, but teachers want to inspire, they want to ensure a safe learning environment, they want to teach essential skills. I think it's interesting, and it provides a really dynamic view that all teachers believe their purpose in the classroom is a little bit different than the teacher next door. I think that's a healthy thing for kids. As a former educator, former principal, former assistant superintendent, those are the things we like to see to create diversity in our classrooms and in our school buildings. Staff survey in general, is the district headed in the right direction? Again, resounding 92% yes. Of the small percentage, no, please explain. Again, we heard about testing, we heard about standards, we heard about feeling trapped within the curriculum and having to quote unquote teach to a test, which is not all that uncommon. Our next steps. We will continue to work through phases 2 and 3 beginning in the fall of 19. As Mr. Hunt noted, we have dates already on the calendar for our design team in October. We'll discuss all of this data, we'll validate our goals, we'll begin design team collaboration. Those meetings are fun for me to facilitate. There'll be some criticism, there'll be some arguments, there'll be some dynamic conversation as we really attempt to hone in on those essential skills, what they mean, and it really is kind of a fine dance between what people connotate different words, and it elicits different emotions. We're working in a district right now. There was a healthy argument and discussion over the core competency of self-discipline. And probably 20 members of our design team felt that was it's a positive quality for a student to have. And other people in that same room kind of felt that self-discipline carried a negative connotation, and that discipline elicited kind of the military, fearful, we're going to scare you into doing something attitude. So those types of conversations are on the horizon, and it makes things very interesting, and it helps to do great work. Phase 4 will begin community focus groups after that design team work is done. We anticipate that happening in November. And then phase 5, when we're through, the document's been vetted, we'll come to the board and ask for adoption of that document so that we can roll out into the community. And again, via the administrative team, really infuse this into daily practice. I'd love to answer any questions that you might have. I know that was a lot for 10 or 15 minutes. We're doing similar projects with several districts here locally and throughout the state of Ohio. So we've seen a lot. We have a lot of good research to back this, so we're really excited to get moving.
So did the community members ever mention tests getting in the way, or
Absolutely.
they said the same thing?
That was a high frequency item within community members as well.
Okay.
Not so much in that community members disagree with accountability and testing. It's finding an appropriate blend of making sure kids are armed with 21st century skills in a testing environment. Because those are the rules of the game. We understand that. We can't really hide from that.
And most, I was looking, I had a note here, but most of the community members were parents, as I
Yes.
recall. It was in the 90%,
It was.
92% or
Absolutely
something.
correct.
So,
Yep.
and we're obviously, we'll have opportunities with focus groups to get to
Sure.
people who don't have a computer, or
Yes.
maybe they were reticent to fill out a survey, they
Sure.
don't feel very connected to the school, so we'll have some opportunities.
One of our recommendations certainly will be to take advantage of community groups that are somewhat built in. If there's a strong senior community gathering, we would
Right.
like to kind of leverage those gatherings and share some time and get the document in front of senior citizens. And also, we really make a big push to get the document in front of people who either no longer have children in the district, or who are young families in the district and maybe have pre-K
Right.
students. Because that feedback is essential as well. We understand, the built-in energy of our current parents.
Sure.
But it truly needs to be a community-based
Right.
document.
And that'll help us to, how are we regarded with groups that aren't
Absolutely.
communicating with us
Sure.
quite as regularly.
Good.
And Bob has such great connections with the Chamber of Commerce and your Business Advisory Committee, and then Phil through the ESC, there may be some opportunities as well with, this profile of a graduate. What are some of these qualities that businesses are looking for,
Absolutely.
bringing those groups in?
Some of our best feedback comes from meetings with Chamber. We've had several Chamber meetings where we get to leverage that time and really listen to industry leaders. What are kids lacking? As you see, even college graduates show up. We hear things consistently. This is not news to Mr. Hunt. I know, the community and business, they want people who can communicate. And it's not always the 4.5 Ivy League bred, because sometimes that just doesn't translate. Oftentimes it does, because the students have mastered the essential skills that we're going to attempt to hone in on. Good question.
How does this work dovetail with work you're currently in the process of doing, like philosophically revisiting how we do grades and assessments?
And so I would imagine a lot of the work we're doing carrying over into, grading and assessment, we don't start that in August and it's all wrapped up in by June. There's various elements in that conversation. So we're going to talk about homework. That's kind of a real focus this year is homework. There's so much more with assessment that we're going to have to just be thoughtful in. When is the time when we feel staff is ready? I'm very cognizant of the last plan. If you kind of go online and you look at it,
A little robust.
very robust, a ton of action steps.
Yeah.
So I really want this work, especially through the fall, to create a guiding post for us, and then really analyze, okay, what are the strategies we currently have in place that are moving in that direction? What are the steps we need to keep going down to move that way, and what are we missing here? So the conversation should look different. My goal and my hope is, the profile is one thing, but when you see the action steps, that they're measurable, there's an accountability piece to it, but it's very, very targeted and very realistic, and not a laundry list of things that
It's not a
we
checklist.
can't do.
Correct.
Yeah. It's not easy to accomplish that, and I think the measurement is one of the most critical things. Does the measurement reflect achievement of the goal with the true intent of the goal, or was it that we completed a certain series of action steps, and so, we checked that off?
Sure.
Well, also, I just want to thank you. We had a very thorough packet to review.
Excellent. Thank
And
you.
I know
Glad
you've
to
done a lot
appreciate
of
it.
work, and we had about a month to review that,
Yeah.
so if we don't have a ton of questions, it's
No,
because
we understand.
you
That's good.
informed us so
We did our
well.
job. Thank you very
Yeah.
much. We appreciate that. Very excited to continue, and I know that Mr. Hunt has aspirations of including some board members in the design team process. We look forward to seeing you there. It truly is, it's inspiring to see the work of those groups kind of come to terms on what's best for kids. Really, in the end, is we're trying our kids to be successful in the future.
One other question I did have,
Sure.
was when I was looking at the data that we had in the board report, so it seemed like internally, we saw the biggest issues being finances and facilities.
Correct.
When you look at externally, finances and facilities are like third or fourth.
State mandates was up there high. I believe state
Yeah.
and federal mandates was
Right.
resounding.
Exactly. That was clearing away number one. So
Sure.
with your experience in seeing these, it's a little bit of a disconnect.
It is. I think teachers see the life of school, the organism of school a little bit differently than the general community does. I think communities have seen so much too recently, anti-testing movements, that when they see state, federal regulations on a survey, it seems to resonate. With young moms and dads especially, again anecdotally, but this is just in what we see working with hundreds and hundreds of districts. The ODE, they have some work to do, because I think a lot of young moms and dads, as millennials kind of begin to have children at school and begin to be staffed, millennials throughout, I think that you're going to see some things changing. I know change takes time, but I believe that's why that resonates so heavily with moms and dads.
There's another layer to the testing though, which, culturally, we do a lot of data collection now, and we're using that in ways that we then see measurable improvement
Sure.
in our student performance. So I think that we have to, when we're having these conversations, we have to make sure we're all talking about the same thing too, because a teacher in a classroom may be saying, I'm talking about within the individual chapter units, how much creativity I can
Sure.
embed versus how much I have to use a technology-based instrument.
Absolutely.
And someone sitting next to them might be thinking about the federal mandates or the state mandates that are coming in.
Sure.
That's where I just want to make sure I think it's going to be a robust conversation and about how we move forward.
Certainly, to Mr. Hunt's point, I think as we cascade these messages out, that's certainly something we're going to communicate heavily once we arrive at decisions on these competencies. These questions will come up, and you're absolutely right, we need to be able to communicate them efficiently.
Yeah, I mean, it's been an ongoing conversation, right? How much is too much with testing? There was a point in time we determined we really needed to raise these scores. We have, and you'll see that when the report comes out, and the work of our staff is certainly the fruits of those labors have panned out. But I think you're going to see two things colliding when you see this profile, and then you think about test scores. And we need to really dig into that conversation to understand, okay, how much value does each of these kind of buckets hold? What is the minimum maybe on the testing front that's okay? So we all understand and agree to that, and use all, but we have the kind of the real pulse of what our community, what our staff sees in kids, so we don't go overboard. I mean, we don't keep blazing down a path in which there's no creativity for our teachers to, create lessons, and everything is standardized, and everything is about the next steps. We have to be careful of where we go, and this is the moment we have to make those decisions, at least for the next 3 to 4 years. So it's a lot. Yeah.
Hence it being a goal for the district, right?
Sure.
Handling the facilities over the last 2 years was a major goal for the district. Getting a strategic plan updated is a major goal for the district that will involve really everybody at every level. So, any other questions? To you, Mr. Hush.
I have no other questions or comments. Chris, thank you very much.
Absolutely, thank you.
I know you miss board meetings.
They were my favorite.
As well as our guest from Sodexo, I know you've got a drive to make. We're going to go on with our agenda, but no one will be offended if you decide you want to.
Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Do you want to hear the vote on the contract before they go?
Or you may want to wait. You may want to hear your vote on your contract, but that's up to you.
It's up to you. We will not be offended if you decide to leave and enjoy this beautiful evening.
I'm sorry, that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hunt. Can I have a motion for consent agenda items 8A through 8AB?
So moved.
And a second?
Second?
Moved by Mr. Kanziger, seconded by Mrs. Bros. Any discussion on these? All right, Mrs. Bruno, would you take the roll, please?
Mrs. Garvin?
Yes?
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Kanziger?
Yes.
Mr. Rankin?
Yes.
Scrolling, oops, went too far. Sorry, I think it's time for superintendent's recommendations. Can I have a motion for superintendent recommendations 9A through 9N?
So moved.
And a second?
Second?
Moved by Mr. Kanziger, seconded by Mrs. Bros. Mr. Hunt, would you like to speak to these?
Sure. Item A is a resignation agreement with a teaching employee. Item B is the addition of a .5 for
language teacher at Chagrin Falls Middle School related to the resignation in May. We were able to adjust some classes, have other teachers pick up the 6th class. That's why we're replacing 1.5 versus a 1 year. Terry, although not here tonight, a seasoned veteran teacher, retired from Mayfield, very good credentials. Everyone who's talked to him, and I haven't had the opportunity yet, keeps telling me how exciting this individual is. He actually lives in Oregon. He's moving back here to be with kids and this opportunity. So we'll welcome him at the convocation as well. Item C is the custodian saga. We've been searching for a custodian for quite some time, and we were able to find a great candidate. As you remember, when we opened the new building, or when we closed the old building, we did not replace the positions. We were down a position. Obviously, the new building opened. We filled that. That was filled by Patrick Cohn, who was working here on the 712 campus tonight. This individual kind of filled in for Patrick. Item D and E, we'll go back on this in the board report. We're asking you to approve the retirement of Allison Lewis, who's an educational aide from the position that she resigned from in June. And E is related to that position. I do have to bring to the Board of Education in the OPC contract anyone who's requesting more than 5 unpaid leave days. These are related to graduations and not only military graduations, but the deployment where she would like to be there with her son for those events. Item F is the recommendation to approve the Director of People Services. To be clear, that's not an additional position. Lisa Shannon, Assistant Superintendent, you accepted her resignation earlier this month. I made a decision to recommend that we replace that with the Director of People Services position. So we're not replacing the Assistant Superintendent, and we're asking you to approve this job description. Item G is a recommendation to employ a Director of People Services which fits that job description. I'm recommending Jen Banco step into that position as an interim for 1 year. Most of you know Jen, and if you know Jen, she has very good relationships throughout our community as a parent and as an employee. She served as a school psychologist in our district for 9 years. Is that right? I did remember that from this morning when we were at Houston. Obviously, a lot of knowledge in the area of special education, and I think her respect of her peers and respect of parents are certainly 2 key components of this position. And she gets to walk in and already have that established, and having that, kind of build that from the ground up. So I'm very pleased to make that recommendation. Item H is a recommendation for the board to approve a consultant agreement with the Northeast Ohio Educational Service Center. They changed from Cuyahoga County. It's going to take me about 5 years to get it right. So the Northeast Ohio Educational Service Center to employ Amy Harker 3 days a week. Amy is currently has a position as an innovation specialist at the ESC. Her background is 18 years in education and leadership. She's has a vast knowledge in Director of People Services, the People Services side. She's worked in the gifted side curriculum. You did see a copy of her resume. There's a lot of functions in central office that she can bring experience to and talents to, and really support Jen in areas that maybe she just hasn't been exposed to yet. So Amy, we appreciate you being here tonight, as well as Jen, and everything that hopefully we'll be doing for the district here in the next year. Item I is a contract. I do want to point out here, we will see more contracts coming on the board agenda. I will keep them up in consent unless they're kind of unique and different. We've had some conversations internally with our team all the way down to the building level that contracts were being signed off by building principals. Really feel like those need to come up here to the Board of Education so you kind of have an understanding of those things. So you're going to see longer agendas, but I will put those in consent unless it's something that's different or we really need to talk about. Item J is the annual adoption of our bus routes. Item K is the agreement with Sodexo for an extension. Item L is, we've had kind of an informal agreement with the Federated Church for a long, long time in which they've used our parking lot for their services. We, with the new building, decided to kind of approach that and kind of formalize things, so we had an agreement in place. If you remember, I believe everyone was on the board when we did this with the Historical Society. I think it's, really kind of protects both sides of this arrangement. I don't want to say it's so formal that the personal relationship, the relationships we have is any different. But I will tell you, we've actually been using their parking more since these conversations have happened. They've been great with opening a school and convocation and things of that nature. So it's certainly a nice reciprocal relationship that we have with the Historical Society as well as Federated Church. Item M is a resolution from EMOD. I think you've had a lot of updates on the various pavement signage and things that have played into this paving on this campus as well. And item N is the change orders, OCO 41 through OCO 44. We do have an overview of those. They're kind of all over the place. Work that's been kind of approved and seen through our construction meetings. I asked Carrie that when we get tonight is how many more are out there. There are more out there. Obviously, there's additional overtime. There's things that we've came across even in the project here. She very accurately pointed out that we have about a $53,000, don't hold me to that figure, but about a $53,000 kind of give back contingency right now from Gilbane. So that gives you some scope of where we're at with the project, and there's a spreadsheet that gives you a lot more detail. And she, is doing everything she can to keep those things down. As we reconcile things, there will be things that were change orders that we're charged for, but there will also be allowances and things that are out there that we have budgeted that either didn't, hit that cost or we didn't have to do. So that will kind of play itself out over the next month as we kind of close the books on this project. Any specific questions?
Sorry.
No, that's all right.
I think Carrie had indicated at one of our construction meetings that it'll be several months after school opens before all the pieces and parts come together. But the spreadsheet that we have anticipates everything that's on Carrie's list right now coming to fruition. And we still have $500,000 approximately when you add in the interest earnings on the bond proceeds of wiggle room, even if all of those things come to fruition. So I think we're in a really great place. And I know we say a lot, but I want to applaud you and the team to get this project done on time and on budget. It's really something very astounding.
Well, if you followed me around today, on time seems to be like stressing me out, but we will be there on Saturday.
There will be kids in the building on Tuesday, yes. They don't mind a few boxes here or there. I might go weed the gardens myself if I see any more weeds popping up.
Do those numbers include the entranceway projects?
Yes. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, one of the things, having done facelifts throughout the district, a lot of projects got done at Gurney, the entrance being one of them, but also some roofing. A lot of projects got done within the bond, and then the additional operating proceeds that we got from the last funding.
That's all.
Okay. Any other discussion? Mrs. Bruton, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Garvey.
Yes.
Mrs. Burrows.
Yes.
Mr. Kinzinger.
Yes.
Mr. Rankin.
Yes.
No? Yes.
Jen?
We're going to congratulate
Amy, come
her.
on up.
I love the school colors too. I just feel like you're
It's an orange today.
It's gonna be great. I'm so lucky.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Nice to meet you, Sharon.
We're taking pictures.
Chrissy.
down center?
Yeah, but you should
You should go, yeah, you should go with Bob.
You're
Yeah, pretty much every 2 weeks.
For your
Good
thing I got my hair done today.
Well, that's good.
I wish I had done that.
Ready, turn, ready? Ready, 1, 2, 3, good. Well, it took 2 of you. I'm
That's
looking.
easy.
All right, I look forward to seeing more.
Co-teacher. I'm excited to see you.
All right, so moving along, can I have a motion for treasurer's recommendations 10A through D?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Moved by Mr. Rankin, seconded by Mr. Kanzinger. Mrs. Grudno, would you like to talk through these with us?
Absolutely. Item A is a recommendation to employ Jill Koval as the assistant treasurer. We did receive several applications. There were close, I think, of just over 20. We interviewed several people, we talked to a lot of people, and after talking to everybody, I realized that Jill is the best person for the job. Her knowledge of the district as a whole more than makes up for some of the things that she doesn't know yet. She's her work ethic and her intelligence and her ability to pick things up really quickly is what I need in the department. So unfortunately, that pushes my being fully staffed out a little further because now I do have to post for payroll. So hopefully you will see a recommendation for that sooner rather than later, and we'll be fully staffed in the treasurer's office. But I'm excited to have her transition into that position. Item B is several then and now statements. Most of these are the result of closing blanket purchase orders at year end. So staff didn't necessarily understand, or they were not informed about some of the Ohio Revised Code requirements that require blanket purchase orders. If it has the word blanket on it anywhere, it's considered a blanket purchase order. Revised Code does require that those get closed as of June 30th. So there were orders out there, things out there that they thought they were going to pay on a purchase order. I had to close those at year end. So then I reopened them on July 1st, but then your PO date is July 1 and the activity occurred in June or prior. So that's what all of these are. The one at the bottom you see there's 2 purchase orders. That is actually, you'll see the July 1st one was the one that I opened after I closed the original one, and then the invoice came in and it was for a higher amount than what we expected, so we had to add another one on there. So that's the combination of those 2. That one's actually for an intermediate school field trip that took place at the end of the year last year. So
I assume that the variance was pre-approved with principal.
Yeah, so
it wasn't a surprise to.
Right, no, if a purchase order goes within 10%, if the actual expenditure is within 10%, we don't put out a new purchase order for it. We allow that up to 10% over. But beyond 10%, we do require an additional or a new one altogether. So the expense had been approved, was not on the purchase order. Item C is donations. We have a donation from Wells Fargo. This is an employer match to a donation that we received from Henry Spain. And the second item is a donation from HMH Masonry Restoration. They restored some pieces of some of the historic 1885 stones for the intermediate school. I believe they've been framed and mounted and everything is all in there. So, and that was a donation of the services to do that for us. And item D is the financial reports for the month of July. I'll go through some of these. July being the first month of the year, there's not a whole lot of comparison data to provide. So very first item there, that's the SM report. You will see estimates in there for all of the months once we start working on the 5-year forecast and once I get monthly estimates in there. We do have annual estimates from the prior 5-year forecast. We estimate for each year all the way out to a 5-year period, but I don't have monthly estimates from the May forecast from last year. So I do not have any numbers to put in there yet. Those will get filled in when we have those. Second report is the general fund revenue summary. Typically, I like to have some kind of chart on here, pie chart showing you where most of your money is coming from. At this point, only having 1 month, it's not really valuable, doesn't really give you a good picture of where your money comes from because you're only giving you a picture of 1 month. So the majority of the money this month, obviously you'll see there in the property taxes and the public utility personal property taxes. Those are, can you move on to the next report? I'm sorry. There we go. Those first 2 numbers there, those are the results of the tax advances from Cuyahoga and from Geauga. It's the majority of our revenue in July. Moving on to the next report. Thank you. This is an expenditure report. Again, I like to do some comparisons, but when I only have 1 month, it's not really all that valuable to do comparisons to previous years. So what I've done here is just show you the percentage of where we're at in this year. So taking the estimates that we do have, and then that's based on the 5-year forecast in the past, from the May 5-year forecast, what we estimate for the year, and then showing you where we're at. So the orange is what we have spent to date as of the end of July. So you can see they're all less than 10%, which is great because we're only 8.3% through the year.
It doesn't give us a frame of reference though for variances that you would plan for that chart, right? Like you may have.
This doesn't yet.
Yeah.
What you will see once I get the 5-year forecast and I actually get some monthly data, you know, like I said, I have an annual estimate, but I don't have a monthly estimate yet. Once I get that 5-year forecast and I get estimates for each month that are accurate
Right.
and reliable, then I'll start providing some variances there. And moving on to the summary report. This is just a fun summary. This is what you've gotten used to seeing. I presented it this way last month. Prior to that, you had all of this information just in a different format. You'll see the ending cash fund balance there of $30,601,000. At the top of that column there, the general fund, ending cash balance of $18,863,000. That'll trace to your SM2 report. That should agree there. Moving on to the bank reconciliation. If you're really paying attention to this one and you're looking at it, you'll notice that the $1,389.88 is still carrying. That is from the previous month. That was a direct deposit to an employee. Employee informed us they didn't get their direct deposit, it didn't happen, they had changed their bank, so we went ahead and cut them the check, waiting on the money to come back from the bank. Bank never sent us the money back, did a little bit more research into it, because it was from the 30th pay, so by the 1st we wouldn't have had it yet. So we did a little bit more research into it, and the employee did still have that account. It went into that account. They had just forgotten about that account. So the employee is going to reimburse us that via personal check. So we will receive that back. It just has not happened. It didn't occur by the end of July. And then the other item there is the Ohio taxes. That's an ACH item that comes directly out of our bank account. The state changed the process that we submit those. So we thought that we had done the process, she followed all the rules. Nobody called us and said that they didn't get their money until we looked into it and we didn't balance, and all of a sudden we realized the state did not get their $17,000 and didn't notice it. So we had to contact them and get that corrected. That has since been corrected. Moving on to the next report. This is just a summary of where your money is at the end of July. So you can see the majority of it's still there in Star, Ohio. That is still our best option right now with yield. So we're holding our money in there until we need it, and then we're moving it into the operating accounts. And then the final report is just the list of all of the actual securities and CUSIP numbers and all of the detail behind that. Any questions on any of that?
Any on the financial report? I just want to go back to Jill Koval and just say, you know, she is such a huge asset to the district. I know she couldn't be here tonight, but hopefully you'll convey on behalf of the board that we're really thrilled that she's taking this on. Not only is she as a team, she's a team player,
Absolutely.
but she also, as you pointed out, has great relationships. She's really about customer service. We know she's smart and capable, and it's really exciting to have her continue to be a part of your team, but in a new capacity.
You'll see how excited I am when you see that I put the start date for tomorrow. So I want to move that along as quick as possible.
Okay. And then I just had one little nit, I don't know if it matters, but the stone, I think, that was cleaned came from Ashbury Cemetery or Seminary or the Union School, because the intermediate school didn't exist in 1885. Remember which, was it Union School? Okay.
85 Union School.
Okay. On the
site.
site, yeah, up on the site of the intermediate school. So just, John Verso will be very happy that
I will correct that.
corrected that stone.
That will be corrected in the minutes.
Yes, and I think everybody will be able to see that on Saturday, right? So, good, okay. So, any other comments or questions? So that leads into other business, which I think, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. Hunt.
No, this is other business, I'm sorry.
Are you gonna cover the Saturday events?
I was going to talk a little bit about that.
Okay.
I have to call the roll first.
Can I have a, I'm sorry, did I
Take
not
a roll.
take? Mrs. Bruno, would you please take the roll?
Absolutely. Mrs. Garvey.
Yes,
Mrs. Rose.
yes,
Mr. Kinziger.
Yes.
Mr. Rankin.
Yes.
thank you. Can I have a motion for other business? I need
So
a
moved.
motion.
So moved.
Any other business?
We need a second.
We do, I know we're not voting on anything, so we don't. You and I are off our game tonight.
Just two quick things. Last evening, we met with the Chagrin Falls BZA regarding our variance request regarding the lamp posts. There's a lot of conversation, most of which didn't deal with the actual variance request. And it was approved unanimously by the BZA. I do want to bring the board's attention, what did come up is there were three residents in attendance, three residents in attendance expressing some concerns about the glare, the amount of glare that the new lighting system was putting off. We did get contact information for each of those individuals. We're going to follow up with them as we're kind of moving through implementing our program of lights over the next couple of months. So much different than we had with the old school. It was going to flip on and flip off. We have the ability to dim lights within the system, so we can take them from 100% and lower them. I'll tell you that everything lower from 100% starts to nick away at the kind of the safety and security recommendations, but we have been told up to even down to as low as 50% still meets the safety requirement. So we right now have a program from 10 o'clock to 4 a.m. where they can drop to 50%. We're going to look and see kind of the impact of that 50%. We're also getting trained on the system. So I think we have, once we have the ability, we'll have some flexibility. Does 7 o'clock make sense in gym when it's light until 9? So we can adjust things as we go here. And we're going to continue to try to work with those three residents to offset as much as we can. So good news is the variance request is done, but we will continue kind of with our residents and see if we can rectify some of the issues that we're dealing with. I think it's important for the board to know overall we are down the number of lampposts that we had from prior. I think some of it's different type of lighting, although they were LED before, weren't they, Chris?
Yes.
Yeah, I think
That's
they
what
were.
we said.
So I just thought I would bring it to your attention in case you heard anything about it when we reach out and we'll start to work through that with our residents.
So I think the district has been really accommodating for a variety of different issues that have come forward from anybody in the neighborhood, of the school and also from the village. So I know we'll continue to be as responsive as we can, but also helping to convey why it's important that we have lights on,
Sure.
on our campus. That's obviously a very important factor. We'll try to ameliorate any untoward effects on the neighbors. So I appreciate you doing that, having those conversations with them and helping them understand if we can't totally eliminate it, that hopefully they walk away knowing, why that's an important feature.
As we move towards the opening of school on Saturday, and I know there's been a lot of emphasis on if you can walk to school and ride the bus, that would be preferred at the intermediate school, but I think I'm going to get this question, so just remind me, we do actually have more spaces available, right? Like,
It's about
The
Same
parking
parking,
is,
I think it's about the same.
I think it's very close.
Thought we had
Chris,
like
is it-
3 more.
I want to say we had a couple of more spaces.
Thought we had one more space than we did in the previous.
okay,
Yeah, it's really, really
so it's
close.
similar.
Yeah.
But the drop-off procedure, similar to on this campus, has really been optimized to keep traffic flowing. So if parents are in that line.
No, I just think
cars,
people see that missing back and
Yeah, they
assume
think a
that
lot's
it's smaller
gone.
than it really is.
Yeah,
But I think part of that response is, you know, the whole side of the Federated used to be just a drop off.
right,
Right.
you couldn't park
It's
there.
Hall
Right.
parking, so
Right.
most of that was gained back there.
It's exciting, gonna be exciting.
So 2 events coming up. Obviously, the ribbon cutting ceremony will be this Saturday at 11 is when the program starts. We're asking the board to be there at 10:30 for photos. We're going to do the photos on the front end so we don't have to hold people up from getting into the building, ribbon cutting. Should be a great day. Certainly spent a lot of time planning it and just somebody take care of the weather so we're not inside.
It looks
It
good
looks
so
good
far,
so far.
yeah.
Um,
But it is going to happen even if there's
Yeah,
inclement
it's,
weather.
it's gonna happen, we're gonna cut a ribbon either way. Then, just a reminder, next Monday is convocation, so we push convocation back, it will also be in intermediate school. We have a continental breakfast, we will do less than we've done before, because we're trying to shrink the amount of time we have staff there. We've got a walkthrough in that building at 10 o'clock, so our program is gonna be from about 8 to 8:45. We're gonna allow our staff to then tour the building and leave the signs up for the walking tour from the opening day. But obviously you're invited to come. Staff were given their theme shirts for the year and encouraged to wear those. I'm not getting into what you should wear or not. But you're certainly welcome to join us for that event. It's certainly a nice day. Those are my 2 other
Okay.
business.
Thank you. Yeah, everybody I talked to was getting really excited about the opening of the building and the opportunity to go on the tours. And I also want to thank you and Chris and the team for, I think it's been like 6 months of planning for the program. So it's going to be a really nice event, very thoughtfully planned.
And you want us to park off campus?
The more you can either walk, you can walk, you both can walk, or get a carpool, will help, because there's no parking on the site. We're gonna shuttle from up here.
You could also park here and walk down the hill.
I can do that.
Yeah. All right, thank you, Mr. Hunt. Anybody else? Any other business? Okay. So our next meeting is Wednesday, September 4th at 6 o'clock in this room. Can I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, moved by Mr. Rankin, seconded by Mr. Kanziger. Mrs. Bruno, please take the roll.
Mrs. Garvey?
Yes?
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Kanziger?
Yes.
Mr. Rankin?
Yes.
Well done, Mrs. Garvey.